Welcome. Take a seat around the campfire, listener, and settle in. Listen, if you will, to a few stories from the Deep River. The Deep River is an old river, an ancient river. Rivers collect stories when people live along their banks. And the Deep River has many tales to tell, many eras of people, their fortunes and misfortunes. Fact or fiction, folklore or history, these are fears and experiences that stay close to you. They linger like burrs, thorny and tangled. Now I'm here with my co-host Shiza. Shiza, do you have any favorite Halloween traditions or any spooky stories that you like to tell?
So, Halloween traditions, not so much, because I actually didn't grow up celebrating Halloween. My parents were not into that sort of thing. But I really, really like the Halloween season when it rolls around, because you get all of these really cool media, all of these really cool spooky stories. I love watching the Scooby-Doo movies when they roll around again, Over the Garden Wall. I love that kind of thing. I feel like the main two seasons for that are sort of October and then also in the summer. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. How about you?
I don't have a whole lot of special Halloween traditions that I hold near and dear to my heart, except for one. I really like to dress up in costumes. I am reminded of the origin story, if you will, of All Hallows Eve, when it first started, about people dressing up to ward off the evil spirits as October was, or when Halloween was celebrated. It was sort of known as when the two worlds, the underworld or the spirit world and the real world, the world that we live in, they were brought closer and closer together. It's when they were the closest to each other. And people dressed up as warriors or witches or skeletons or what have you to ward off those spirits or scare them off or even trick them into thinking that they were walking among their own. So, and of course, as being an avid theater kid myself, I really like to dress up and take on a new character. Yeah, that's the greatest Halloween tradition that I have. But I don't think anything that I have will be as spooky as these deeply scary stories of the Deep River.
We begin with the story of Craig Murdoch. The year was 1893. Agriculture struggle was sweeping through the foothills of the Carolinas, with a great transition happening as the frontiers shrugged to a halt at the end of the American coast-to-coast expansion. Urban cities were bustling, the West Coast was under fervent construction in the race for the railroads, and the farmers on the East Coast lived in the land making do. Making do meant blankets out of seed bags, folk medicine to save on seeing a doctor, and as much land as possible was swallowed by commercial crops, a large garden to subsist on. Dwindling size in each year, farmers, even small farmers, were taking to commercial production: corn, wheat, cotton, and tobacco. A farmhand, Craig was used to working hard. Laboring in the sun on a hot July day, the heat rose like an apparition. The smell of myrtle and magnolia, the sound of cicadas, the quick flashing green of the June bugs. Sweat makes sticky work, gluing clothes to skin. Cotton and linen would have wicked moisture away, but only so far. The humidity of North Carolina's thunderstorms, rolling temperamentally across the landscape, would have inhibited that. There were things to lighten the load. The sweet bite of summer fruits, juicy and cold, sweet tea, sweating condensation, ice cubes bobbing like apples in the water, and cool water, clear and swift. The last was what Craig Murdoch chose, cheaper than any of the alternatives, abundant in the deep carved-out banks of the Deep River. Textile mills were booming. Mill towns erupted, shaking their way along the river, Schools, housing, churches, company stores, a full village owned and operated by the factories, conveniently arranged to snare deft hands, keep them close by to run the great machines. The engines of North Carolina's great fabrics industry. By 1900, 92% of textile workers would live in mill towns. Here in the early 1890s, it was ripsawing its way up to that precarious peak. The mouth of industry, swallowing the cogs it could get, and stretching out wide, hands up and down the coast, passing out cotton, linen, fabric, furniture, and the very same cotton and linen that would have been on Craig Murdoch's back, another layer on the oppressively hot day. Murdoch made his way past Logan's factory. The heavy, shifting machines with its crushing teeth, fast-moving belts and shuttles, pitch points and pressure, and in the dark, deafening roars. To the back, an outlet to the deep river, its inviting waters, a balm for the shimmering heat. He slipped into its cool embrace, eager for relief. Murdoch was swallowed by the water's insistent grasp. A friend, Ad Horney, attempted to save him, but nearly drowned himself. There are no records of the conditions that day. Was the water deceptively still, beckoning him closer? Was it a churning industrial maw, chewing and spitting, fast-moving, and shining white foam on its brow? Was it bubbling light and playful, and then dragging him unawares? We do not know. But he went under, as nearly did another man that day. Craig Murdoch was no more. Though carefully buried at the Deep River Friends Cemetery, Craig Murdoch did not rest easy. He continues to toil, pacing the banks, chasing and pursuing those who catch glimpses of his restless ghost. People describe a cold, bony hand, grasping, swift, like the waters that snatched him. And on days like these, with the summer gradually fading and the cool chill of autumn setting in, it is easy to feel. It is easy to feel. It is easy to feel.
Hello, AJ here. Let's take a pause and play a little game. In the comments section of this episode, let me know what spooky animal you think this is. I'll give you a hint. This animal is found here in North Carolina. The answer will be revealed in the next episode.
And now for our second story, a more mythological tale from eras bygone.
There are some supernatural phenomena that are confined to a specific time and a place. The Cape Fear mermaids are one of them. The confluence of the Haw River and Deep River is where the Cape Fear begins, so it is deeply intertwined with these two rivers, and all part of one larger water system. The Cape Fear was so named for its dangerous expanse of shoals, hazardous for sailors who had to be careful not to wreck on its sandbanks. It rushes strong with the Haw and Deep's supplies, disgorging itself in the Atlantic, transitioning from freshwater to salt. It stretches two worlds and carries with it relics of those two worlds. On the one side, the industrial life of a river, chugging and churning, the lifeline of an urban city, supporting mills and factories, fabrics and textiles, and shipping and ferrying goods all along central to coastal North Carolina. On the other, the tempestuous and superstitious ocean world, sailors and ships crawling along the tossing and turning back of the sea, sometimes never to be seen again. The Cape Fear mermaids are something that could perhaps only live between these two domains, and in a time of upheaval and violence, the Revolutionary War. Mermaid Point lay here at the exact confluence of the Deep and the Haw. Not sailors, but soldiers, the young men swore they could see mermaids perched along the sandbanks, brushing the stinging salt from their hair. Pale, glittering sand lay stretched out from behind Ramsay's tavern, and women's laughter, splashing and singing, permeated the night air. They would dive back beneath the waters when approached, unable to be caught except for a glance. Today, Mermaid Point is flooded, the sandbanks gone, and decades have passed since the last supposed sighting. As the river changes, so do its inhabitants, and without the low, sandy banks, that silty mix of salt and steam, the Cape Fear mermaids are no more. Perhaps they've returned for their beaches or hide below until the tide sweeps low again.
And now, I'd like to introduce you to a friend of the podcast. Let's just say, he makes his money in less than reputable ways.
Hi, folks. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you. No, really. Here's the deal. I was an undercover agent in the Department of Polluted Runoff. That rascally rove just floated me, so I can't stay but a few minutes. Then I gotta move on downstream and warn the others. First, you gotta understand the infrastructure. That's the Greek and geek word for streets, pipes, wires, and all that stuff. Some you see, and some you don't. The thing is that it's all tied into what was here before. You know, the land, woods, fields, streams, and all that natural stuff. But the natural way worked pretty good on its own, and the infrastructure loused it up. The land used to be covered with trees and fields that could soak up a lot of water, and it would seep way down into the ground and slowly work its way over into the streams. That's how come your creeks and rivers keep up a pretty good flow, even while there's a drought on. But with all the buildings, streets, parking lots and stuff now, there's no way for the water to get into the ground. So it just takes off and all goes into the streams. Just between us, there's three kinds of streams. Perennial, that one's in Latin, just means it runs all through the year. Intermittent runs most of the time, but could dry up in a drought. And ephemeral only runs when it's raining and maybe a little bit afterwards. Sort of like a ditch. But here's what they don't want you to know. The streets are actually part of our stream network. More of those ephemerals, to be exact. And they're connected right to the driveways and parking lots. Ever noticed that? So anything that goes into the concrete or the asphalt is practically in the creek already. Now, you might have thought those big stone drains took that water to some kind of treatment plant. But I found out that ain't the way it is. In fact, lots of places you can see the big pipe heading toward the creek and go down there and watch the water pouring in after a storm. Now, that's a big difference from how it used to be, you know? There's a lot more runoff right away when it rains, and pretty soon it eats away at the old stream beds like you wouldn't believe. So, we've gone from when streams had a pretty regular flow, almost always enough and not many really big floods, to what we got now, which is just a trickle most of the time, but a gusher when it rains very much. The old-timers are always wondering what happens to their creeks and swim holes. There's drawings of that called hydrographs, back to Greek again, where they used to have to scrunch up the scale to show the flood volume being hundreds of times normal. So what, you say? Well, where's the water when you need it? Already gone. And where's the land beside the creeks? Got washed away, out toward the ocean, carrying all sorts of stuffs. Hope you're not too big on seafood or beach vacations. Now, who's to blame? Let's go get them. Could be the developers, but after all, we don't want to live in caves, and in fact, we like being comfortable and showing off a little with our big cars, houses, and lawns. Or it could be the government. Always building more roads and infrastructure and stuff. But if they didn't, we'd probably all get together and fire or unelect them. Maybe we've just gotten off on the wrong track, asking for a lot, found one way to get it, and won't try anything different. Like what? Ever heard of green roofs? There's dirt and plants, all sorts of neat stuff up there that absorbs the rain instead of letting it run off. In fact, some of them will hold an inch of rain before anything starts running out of the gutter spouts. Pretty common in Europe. I slipped in and checked it out a couple of years ago. And then, all that pavement doesn't have to be impervious. They can make it so water practically runs through into the soil underneath. More like nature intended. My brother thinks they've already done a highway, something like that. But then, he lives in California. And there's lots of other stuff, like rain gardens, storm drains, grates and filters, better neighborhood designs, low-impact development, rainwater collection system, incentives like tax breaks for more tree cover, on and on and on. And we need to go back and rework some of the older stuff. Houses and neighborhoods lasting a long time, so it's not too late to fix a few things and learn better ways to do stuff. For now, I gotta sneak out. You can get back to me the usual way, in the comments section. And don't give up. We gotta get this straightened out so our kids don't get stuck with it. Catch you later. And that's been a taste of some spooky stories from the Deep River. If you've enjoyed this Halloween special, be sure to keep an eye out for our other episodes, where we'll cover different aspects of the Deep River or its RiverCREEPER organization. Catch you next time, and remember, the river is us, and we are the river.